TMs are the most convenient tool to teach Pokemon moves they can't normally learn. They provide an expansion of their move pool, but not all TMs are good. Some of them are pretty bad and have been removed as TMs. So in this video, let's go over the top 10 worst removed TMs from Pokemon. Just keep in mind that some of these moves were removed entirely from the series, so I'm mostly going to judge these moves based off their latest iteration. If some of them are not in Generation 9, then I'm going to be referring to when they were last used in the games. And I'm sure some of these moves can be used in really niche scenarios to make them viable, but if you have to use a really niche scenario just to make a move viable, then that should be an indicator that it's not really that good. If you like videos like this, then be sure to like, share, and subscribe. So with that out of the way, let's hop right into it. At number 10 is Gen 2's TM49, Fury Cutter. This is a bug-type physical attack which doubles in power every time it is used. That's not a bad effect, but Fury Cutter starts off fairly weak. With 40 power, that's nothing to brag about when it comes to bug-type physical attacks. It's definitely not up there with the best of them like a U-Turn, which has 70 power and switches the user out of battle, and X-Scissor with 80 power. And if I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think Fury Cutter is as bad as the rest of the moves on this list. For a normal playthrough, you can risk using this move at its lowest power because after you use it the second time in a row, it's gonna have 80 power, which is the same as X-Scissor. Then, on the third hit, this move maxes out at 160 power. You can spend that one turn using it at its lowest power in a casual playthrough, but competitive battling is far less forgiving. Bug type is the worst offensive type, so using a low power move for one turn will probably screw you over if you don't knock out a Pokemon at the very least. But the biggest downside to using Fury Cutter is that you must consecutively use this move in order to double in power. The move has 95 accuracy, so if you miss, use a different move, use an item, or you can't move because you're asleep or you get paralyzed, it's not going to double in power. Not only will it not double in power, but it's going to reset back to its base power, so you'll need to start over from the beginning. This move reminds me of Rage Fist because they both have conditions in order to increase in power. Sure, you can argue that Rage Fist's conditions are more brutal because it requires getting hit, but at least Rage Fist doesn't reset if you don't keep spamming the move. Fury Cutter was far worse in Generation 1 through 4. It only had 10 power, so if you wanted to crack above 100 power, you're gonna have to use this move 5 times in a row. Gen 5 changed it to 20, but that's still pretty bad until it was changed again to 40 in Generation 6. Coming in at number 9 is TM07 from Generation 1, Horn Drill. Now, let's be honest, this move sounds absolutely cracked if we judge it solely on the effect. Horn Drill is a one-hit KO move, so if it connects, it doesn't matter how much HP the opponent has, nor how bulky they are. They're going down in a single hit. But like everything that sounds too good to be true, there's a catch. A few catches, actually. Horn Drill has 30 accuracy, which is downright terrible. Yes, I understand why Game Freak did it. Giving it low accuracy is a great way to balance its effect, but 30 accuracy makes it the most least accurate move in the games. With only a base PP of 5, it is very likely you'll miss all 5 Horn Drills, but that's not all. Horn Drill also won't work on a Pokemon that is a higher level than the user, so if you're underleveled, Horn Drill just doesn't even activate. Don't get me wrong, it's a fun move to use, but it is the epitome of high risk, high reward. Other powerful moves like Fire Blast tend to have accuracy in the 80s. Horn Drill is all the way down at 30, but like Fury Cutter, I'm willing to give Horn Drill some slack. Compared to the rest of the moves on this list, this one is not as bad. It was intentionally designed to be a Pokemon's worst nightmare, yet unreliable when it comes to landing a hit. Horn Drill has a spot on this list, but it all goes downhill from here. For number 8, we got a move that sounds way cooler than it actually is. Generation 2's TM50, Nightmare. Now, if you never used this move, I don't blame you. Nightmare is a ghost-type status move that only works if the target is already asleep. Once it lands, it deals 25% damage of the opponent's max HP at the end of every turn, as long as they stay asleep. On paper, that sounds solid. It's basically a passive damage over time move that chips away at a Pokemon's HP, but in practice, Nightmare is a nightmare to use. First of all, you need your opponent to be asleep before you can even use this move, and that's not exactly a consistent status to rely on. Most sleep-inducing moves like Hypnosis, Sleep Powder, or Sing have garbage accuracy, so you're already relying on bad accuracy just to set up. And if that sleep only lasts one turn, then congratulations, Nightmare did absolutely nothing. Second, Nightmare's 25% damage per turn is good, but compared to something like Toxic, which deals more and more damage over time, and it doesn't require setup, or even Leech Seed, which saps 1/8 of the target's max HP and gives it to the user at the end of each turn. Nightmare doesn't hold a candle to moves like those, and sometimes it can be dead weight if you can't keep your opponent asleep. If they wake up, use a berry, or switch out, then the effect is gone. If your opponent is asleep, then don't even waste your time using Nightmare. Just set up or attack. So, while it's a cool idea for a move, it's unreliable, gimmicky, and just bad compared to other status moves which chip away at the opponent's health. For number 7, you've probably forgot this move even existed. It's TM60 from Generation 5 through 7. Quash. Now, Quash is a dark type status move that does one thing and one thing only. It delays the target's move until the end of the turn. That's it. You use it and the target will move last. Quash is useless in singles, so this move is clearly meant for double battles. You use Quash so the target moves last, maybe that'll enable your aloy to knock it out before they can move. But this move is just way too gimmicky and not that many Pokemon can take advantage of Quash. The only Pokemon that come to my mind is Alolan Persian because of how fast it is, and Sableye and Murkrow only because they have Prankster. So I want to know who is using this move when Sableye is meant to be a stall Pokemon, while Murkrow is meant to be a support Pokemon that likes to set up Tailwind and paralyze targets. So what's the point in using Quash to make the opponent move last when Thunder Wave cripples their speed and might even paralyze them from moving on a turn? This move is so gimmicky and it's too situational. You have to be faster than the opponent to use Quash effectively, so most of the Pokemon that can learn this move are already eliminated from using it, so now you're stuck with the move which is completely useless in battle. Alright, taking the number 6 spot on this list, we have TM20 from Generation 1, Rage. This move sounds intense, but in reality, it's just kind of sad. Now, Rage is a normal type move with 20 power, which already sets the bar for disappointment. But its effect is whenever the user is hit by an attack, their attack will increase by 1 stage as long as they keep using Rage. If the Pokemon uses another move, then Rage will no longer be active. Therefore, they won't receive an attack boost when they are hit. So you have to keep using Rage if you want to keep boosting your attack. I mean, the move sounds cool because you're raising your attack while also attacking with this move, but Rage is a very weak move. It's one of the strangest ways to boost your attacks anyway. Why waste your time using a low power, insignificant move to raise your attack, and you have to rely on the opponent hitting you when most Pokemon have other options to raise their attack like Swords Dance? Rage is a trap. You use this move thinking you're building towards something huge, yet you have to keep selecting this move if you want to keep boosting your attack. Using it twice doesn't sound that bad, but that means you would have to get hit twice just to reach an equivalent to one Swords Dance. Unless you have a bulky Pokemon using Rage, the odds are your Pokemon's gonna go down in 2 to 3 hits before you can even take advantage of your stat boosts. But the crazy thing is Rage was far worse in Generation 1. You were unable to use any other move for the rest of the battle once you selected Rage. You're locked into this 20 power move, you can't swap out, you can't even select another move. You're locked in there until the battle ends or your Pokemon faints. It's not a good move, and we got the successor to Rage in Generation 9, Rage Fist. I know this is the second time I'm mentioning this move, but it's just better than both entries on this list. It starts off at 50 power and increases by 50 points every time the user is hit. And unlike Rage, where you have to select the move and proceed with your attack before you can activate its effect, you don't have to do the same with Rage Fist. The move is built into the game mechanics, so you can just use it whenever you want. Obviously, it's not a top tier move, but it's a fun gimmick and leagues better than Rage. Now that we're coming into the top 5 worst removed TMs, we got Razorwind, Generation 1's TM02. This is a special normal type move with 80 power and 100 accuracy. Okay, so it has relatively good power, 100 accuracy so you don't have to worry about missing, and it's a special attacking normal type move, which aren't that common. So why is Razorwind at number 5? Well, that's because Razorwind is a 2-turn attack. 2-turn moves alone already come at a steep price, because you have to give up 1 turn of those turns just to charge or recharge an attack. So if that's the case, then most 2-turn moves have to do something extra to compensate for having to do nothing an additional turn. Geomancy is a good 2-turn move because it boosts the user's special attack, special defense, and speed by 2 stages. Meteor Beam and Electro Shot are also good 2-turn moves because they raise the user's special attack by 1 stage, as well as being a 130 power special attack. Add to the fact that you can slap a power herb onto any of these 2-turn moves to make them 1-turn moves makes them that much more desirable. But look at Razorwind. What do you gain from using this 2-turn move? It only has 80 power, so it's not very powerful, and I guess it has a higher chance to crit than most moves, but is that really worth it? It's not a guaranteed effect anyway. It's simply giving you an opportunity to land a critical hit. And are you really going to waste a power herb on Razor Wind just for that one-time usage? If you want to use a special attacking normal type move, then you're better off running Hyper Voice or even Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam is also a 2-turn special attacking move, but it has a 150 power. At least you're getting your bang for your buck with Hyper Beam instead of delivering an average powered attack. It's just not a good move, and it was even worse in Generation 1 through 3 because Razor Wind only had 75 accuracy. So you're using this subpar move, yet it had a 1 in 4 chance to miss. For the fourth worst TM is the first and only Dragon type move in Generation 1, and that is TM23, Dragon Rage. Dragon Rage is such an underwhelming move because it deals set damage. When it comes to mid to late game or competitive battling, moves that deal set damage aren't that good. Dragon Rage will always take away 40 HP from the target. That doesn't sound half bad when it comes to early game because most of the Pokemon have low HP at that point. Therefore, this move can one-shot targets, but this TM is not available until you reach Celadon City, so by that point, most Pokemon will go down in 2 to 3 shots, which is pretty average without factoring in not very effective and super effective attacks. But as you get later and later on into the game, Dragon Rage quickly falls off. The only type of Pokemon that want to use moves that deal set damage are Pokemon like Blissey, because their offensive stats are so bad that you're better off dealing set damage than using their actual attack. What's the point of giving Dragonite or Gyarados Dragon Rage to deal set damage when they have a base attack of well over 100? Dragon Rage will literally hold them back. So yeah, while I'd say this move is at best okay early game, there's not much of a purpose for 99% of Pokemon to run it around mid game or in competitive battling. I'm really glad this move only existed as a TM in Generation 1, because it's such a waste of a slot. Now we're down to the top 3, and for the third worst TM is going to Generation 4's TM78, Captivate. If you haven't heard of this move, then don't feel too bad because it's extremely terrible. What this move does is lower the target's special attack by 2 stages. I will admit that lowering a Pokemon's stat is beneficial because it weakens the Pokemon by either making them slower so that you can move first, they become more frail, or their attacks won't pack that much of a punch. What makes Captivate stand out over every other move which lowers a target's stat is that the target must be the opposite gender than the user. If not, then the move will have no effect. Now, status moves that simply lower a target's stat are not really that good. They tend to be underwhelming actually. Sure, you can do that, but why spend your time lowering one of their stats when you can be boosting your own? It's better to raise your own stats than to lower your opponent's because you're going to keep that stat change as long as you don't switch out or your opponent tries to lower your stats. Therefore, your Pokemon is going to be that much more threatening to the opponent's whole team. But when you lower the opponent's stat, then they can switch out of battle to reset that stat change, or they can stay in, and once that Pokemon faints, you have to repeat the process again. Most moves that are good which involve lowering the target's stats is because lowering the stat is not necessarily the main reason why you're using that move. Psychic is a good move because it has a chance to lower the target's special defense. That's great that you get to lower their special defense, but the main reason why you're using this move is to deal damage. Parting Shot lowers the target's attack and special attack by 1 stage, but the reason why this move is good is because it also switches the user out of battle, and you can switch into a more ideal matchup, and on top of that, the target's stats were lowered, thus giving you a greater advantage. I know what you might be thinking. Attract is a move that also relies on the opponent being the opposite gender, and it can be pretty powerful, but the difference between Attract and Captivate is in the mechanics. Attract has a 50% chance to immobilize the target from moving. Pokemon is a turn-based game, and denying your opponent the opportunity to move is powerful, and that is why Attract is far better than Captivate. Also, I wanted to quickly say that there were other status moves I wanted to put on this list like Flash and Sweet Scent because all they do is lower one of the target's stats, but I don't want to overpopulate this list with status moves that lower a single stat. Plus, at least Flash and Sweet Scent had outside battle mechanics at some point in their existence, and they don't require the target to be the opposite gender. At number 2 is none other than Generation 1's TM34, Bide. I must say that this move is egregiously bad. Like a Razor Wind, it is a 2-turn move, which already makes it a move you don't want to use. On top of being a 2-turn move, its effect that it will deal double the damage onto the target that the user incurred after sustaining damage between those 2 turns. It's somewhat like Mirko and Counter because those moves also deal double the damage once attacked by a special attack or physical attack respectively. Bide doesn't factor in special attacks or physical attacks. Just being attacked in general is enough to activate this move. Generation 4 made this move even better because it was given +1 priority, so if you can accurately predict that you're going to be attacked, you can guarantee Bide's effect will activate on the next turn. Okay, so if it was improved upon, why is it the second worst TM? The reason why Bide is so bad is because it's a 2-turn move and it relies on the user receiving damage. The goal of battling is to reduce a Pokemon's HP to 0, so a move which relies on your opponent dealing damage doesn't seem practical when the payoff is such a letdown. It's just extremely bad competitively and casually. Competitively, you are giving your opponent the opportunity to counter Bide. They can set up or they can switch out into a better matchup. And in casual battling, you want to go up against an opponent that is going to deal direct damage. One that won't deal too little damage to the point where it's not worth using Bide, and not too much damage which will make the user faint. Overall, it's just not worth it when you can use literally any other move, because most Pokemon have a wide enough move pool where they could take advantage of literally anything that isn't Bide. And finally, taking the #1 spot for the worst TM move in all of Pokemon history is none other than Generation 2 through 7's TM21, Frustration. Frustration is a normal type of move with power between 0 and 102, but that power depends entirely on the Pokemon's friendship, or more specifically, how low it is. Friendship is a value assigned to a Pokemon which ranges between 0 and 255. Friendship can be raised and lowered, so the lower your Pokemon's friendship is, the stronger this move becomes. That doesn't sound that bad until you realize it's one of the most counterintuitive and impractical moves the game has ever introduced. In a standard playthrough, friendship increases naturally over time. Walking with your Pokemon, leveling up, healing them, giving them items, using vitamins, or just keeping them in your party, that all gradually raises their friendship. That means frustration only gets worse as you simply play the game, and it continues to degrade the more you use and care for your Pokemon, which is fundamentally how Pokemon is played. The only way to make it viable is by actively trying to make your Pokemon despise you. You have to box them so their friendship won't increase or decrease, avoid leveling them up, feeding them herbal medicines, and letting them constantly faint in battle, all of which go against how the game is played. Plus, having a high friendship produces battle effects, which can be beneficial. Your Pokemon gets chances to endure an attack, increase XP gain after the battle is over, and cure status effects. You don't get these beneficial effects if you want to use frustration to its full extent. Return is also a TM, and it is the exact same as Frustration, but its power increases the more friendship a Pokemon has. The only positive thing I could say about Frustration is that Frustration is more powerful than Return as long as a Pokemon's friendship is between 0 and 127. But once that friendship reaches 128, Return becomes stronger. Pokemon on average tend to have a friendship value below 128 upon capture, so Frustration is better, but for only an extremely brief moment. But, like I said, it's so easy to raise your friendship to make Return quickly usurp Frustration, making it obsolete. Capturing a Pokemon sets its friendship to 70, this was changed to 50 in Generation 8, but Frustration was removed in Gen 8, and if you want to capture a Pokemon in a Friend Ball, it immediately raises its friendship to 200. Capturing a Pokemon in a Luxury Ball or making it hold a Soothe Bell boosts how quickly its friendship will increase, and if you hatch a Pokemon, then its friendship is 120. Frustration has been a TM for Generations 2 through 7, and while you can teach a Pokemon Frustration in Generations 5 through 7, then replace it with Return once it becomes stronger, the same can't be said for Generations 2 through 4. In those generations, TMs are a one-time usage, so you must actively ensure a Pokemon despises you at all times in order to ensure Frustration can be used to its full extent. Sure, you can replace the move with Return, but that just goes to show how bad it is, as it'll be gone forever. Frustration is the antithesis of the core idea of Pokemon, the theme of the bond between a Pokemon and its trainer. I can go on and on about this move, but you get the point. The fact that you have to go out of your way to make this move usable when you can just use Return, which is far more convenient, is insane, and that's why this is the worst TM of all time. But anyways, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, then please consider sharing, and subscribing. And let me know what you think in the comments. I'll catch you in the next one. Later.